Test 1, 2, 3. Before you count it.
All right, I'd like to call this committee of whole protection to persons and property to order. There's declaration of pecuniary interests. Nothing. There's no delegations or presentations today. Fire Department, Fire Chief's report for February. Any questions or concerns about Chief Wado's report? Mayor Reinwald?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the fire department received their COVID shots for all the firefighters, and for those who wish to get them. So that's very good to hear. Very good to see. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on. Building Department, Building Inspectors report for the month of February. Any questions for board? Building Inspector's mileage report for the month of February. No questions? Right. Moving on, emergency preparedness. I don't think we've had anything, Mayor Reinwald.
No, we have not. That's, I guess, will be determined once we get through this so-called pandemic.
All right. Police report. Any updates with police?
No updates to report. We haven't had a police services board meeting in over a year now. Normally I'm in communication with the detachment commander, but over the last month we've had no communication whatsoever. So things appear to be going not too badly in Laurentian Hills.
I have nothing for other business. There is nothing for closed session, so I'll adjourn at 10:04. I will call the committee of whole for planning to order. Again, declaration of pecuniary interests. There's no delegations or presentations. New business. There's an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. Gord, can you explain a little bit about this?
Okay, we've had an application submitted by a company that owns a property in Chalk River, 5.42 acre property. It's located at the east end of Wilson Street in Chalk River and backs onto residential lots on Bob Seguin Drive. So they've made an application for a zoning bylaw amendment for an exception to a residential property. And as part of the planning process, committee is required to approve the application is complete. The application has been completed according to section 3410 of the Planning Act, and all fees have been paid. So basically, we're asking for recommendation from committee to approve it complete so we can proceed with the process.
Perfect. Any questions or comments to Gord? No? Oh, Mayor Reinwald?
So it meets all the zoning bylaw and all the policy statements.
Yes, yeah, it meets the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
Okay, yes. I have no issues then.
Deputy Mayor?
So, excuse me. So on the zoning plan there, it says the property affected by this zoning amendment. It's only the section. It's not that whole.
It's that whole. It's a 5.42 acre. That whole section.
That whole section is 5.2 acres.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Reinwald?
Thank you, Chair. One other thing. So once this, if this gets approved and it gets through to council, there will be some sort of public meeting on this.
Yes, absolutely. This is only to approve the application as complete, and that's part of the process. We can't continue until it's approved complete.
Okay.
And then we start the process with public meetings and notices.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Good. All right, economic development I'm not sure if anybody has any updates on that. No? Okay, correspondence. A letter of request for ongoing application to purchase a portion of the shoreline road allowance along the Barron River to gain clear title of seasonal dwelling. Again, Gord, if you want to brief us on this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we got a letter request from Price Law Group representing the owner of this property. They're approximately 7 kilometers up the Barron River towards Algonquin Park. It's a remote property that's only accessible by snowmobile in the winter and water in the summer. The application was previously presented to committee back in October of last year and approved as complete to go ahead with the process. In the meantime, they've sent a letter back requesting that rather than sell the 5-foot allowance around the building that encroaches on the waterfront property, they've asked to purchase the entire waterfront property. Now, to do that would almost double the size of the lot because it's a peninsula, so it's a large area of property. So the current owner purchased this property in July of 2019 and should probably been aware that they would be aware there's no hydro or services to the property. But anyway, as according to our policy, our shoreline road allowance policy, we would only sell a 5-foot strip around the encroaching portion of the building, the main building. They wouldn't do that around an outbuilding or whatever. So to do that would be, to sell that whole property would be setting a precedent for one thing. Staff's recommendation is that we stay with the policy and we inform their legal counsel of that.
Okay, any questions or comments? Brenda?
Okay, so I'm in favor of staying with the policy. I'm, in favor of going with that recommendation.
Counselor Dirty?
I am as well. Those policies are there for a reason, and we, as you said, it would set a precedent. And I'm in agreement with your recommendation, Gord.
Mayor Randall?
Ditto.
I'm the same as well. So if you don't mind getting hold of their legal, I guess, and letting them know that.
I will do that, yes.
Perfect. All right. Correspondence B, letter request for approval to install propane outlet for small cylinders, Highway 17. Any questions or concerns about that? Mayor Reinwald?
Thank you, Chair. The only thing I'd like to know, I know when they have a propane tank, people have to be trained and qualified in order to do that. I was just wondering, is there any training for, this is just an exchange program, I believe, but I don't know if there's any requirement for any training in order to, like the handling of the propane. So I would think that we should, those people should have at least that, if it's required. I don't know if it is or it is not.
Okay. Any other concerns or comments?
I agree, Mayor, but it is through the TSSA, and I would imagine that they are quite strict as to training and handling requirements. Right? But it's a good question. Yeah.
And I agree, going through the TSSA. However, I think we should be sure that the TSSA is okay with it. I just wouldn't want to put ourselves at risk. Thank you.
I'd like to comment on this process is part of the TSSA process. We have to, if we approve it, we have to write a letter stating that we approve of the location and name the owner in the letter saying we approve of them having this cylinder dispenser unit, and he has to submit that to TSSA for final approval. So they are aware of it. He's already applied, but this is part of the process in order to get the certificate.
Mayor Reinwald?
And if that's the case, I have no issues.
Good. Everybody's in favor of getting a letter to them then? Perfect. We also have a request for approval to continue operating a propane outlet for small cylinders on Highway 17. So again, I guess everything would fall into place the same as the previous, so. Yeah,
Yeah, I had the same comment on that one, so I have no issues with it as well. No.
good.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Gordon, for that. All right. Last piece of correspondence is the Deep River Downtown Community Improvement Plan request for comments. Any questions or comments about that? Brenda?
So we would just submit our comments directly to Deep River on this? Doesn't go through council or through the office, it goes directly to Deep River? There's a,
If you have comments, there's a form that we fill in with the public body that I have said that we have no comments. We'll provide detailed comments and.
okay, so is there a timeline when you would like those comments?
Public meeting in March 25th, or sorry, April 14th.
April 14th. So when would you want us to have our comments to you? Okay, fair enough.
Any other questions or concerns?
John, I'd like to just comment that this is basically a formality. It's a requirement under the Planning Act when they're making any changes to community development plan. It's just a requirement to notify anyone adjacent to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to make any comments, whether, if it affects us, definitely we do.
Mhm.
If not, we normally just send back no comment, but it's entirely up to committee and council what they want to do.
Perfect. There's no late correspondent, or we can move on. Is that, or Sherry, do you have some comments?
Should we expect comments from the council member?
I don't have any personally.
Gord has made it clear that it's just to notify the neighboring municipalities, so I won't have any comments then if that's the case.
Okay, I will return the form with no comments. Thank you.
All right. No late correspondence, nothing for a closed session. I'll adjourn at 10:14.
Okay, I'll call to order this Committee of the Whole for Public Works. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Roads, our Public Works Superintendent's report for February 2021 and proposed work schedule for the month of March 2021. His report is attached here. Any comments? I know that they were very timely in pushing back the snow before that first thaw that we had, so I was quite happy to see that. Any comments or questions, Brenda or Councillor Blumenke?
So I'm not sure about this particular report this time, but we used to get a little small report of all the repairs to the equipment and the cost of that. Do we not get that anymore, or is it just because this month there is none? Because I did notice in the report there are some repairs, and it just elaborated a little bit more on a separate report, an attachment.
We can ask the Public Works Superintendent to forward that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Reinwald? Mayor Reinwald?
Say that 10 times.
I'll just say
fast.
mayor.
Just a comment, I know they were, the Public Works have been working their buns off trying to get the those snowbanks down. They've been doing a really great job. There was one section, however, from a paving operation that was done last year that caused a little bit of flooding on some driveways, and I just wanted, maybe we can discuss that further at the budget meeting, and there may be some additional ditching and or culvert work that may be required. I don't know all the details on it, but I'll leave that up to the Public Works Superintendent to review. Thank you.
Okay, I do have one, I had a little sticky note, but it's gone here. The minor damage done to the roof overhang in the Chalk River building, has that been repaired? Do we know? And has it been repaired to our satisfaction?
The school board will be looking after that. It was hit by a school bus.
Yes.
And they've obtained quotes and we don't know when they're moving forward with it, but it will be repaired. And it will be inspected by the Public Works Superintendent.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. No other questions there? Nothing under streetlights, water and sewer. We have the Veolia Water Canada Chalk River Drinking Water System Annual Report dated February 18th. Any questions or comments on that? Just very straightforward. I don't see any issues there. No comments, questions? No? Okay. Waste sites, council member update. Oh, that would be me now. Okay, so on Monday evening, we had a North Renfrew Landfill Operations Board meeting. I was nominated and voted in as chair. Thank you to all those who voted for me. So we had a meeting. It was well done. I don't know that there were any pressing issues. We did approve a budget. And it should have been forwarded to the towns and brought forward to council for approval. Anything to add, Councillor Brunke? No.
So, I mean, there's a few things we covered, but the minutes will be
Yeah.
coming out probably for the next meeting for council to review. Any questions? No, I have no further comments.
Okay, thank you. So airport, Mayor Reinwald.
10 times fast. Thank you very much. So to you, Chair, we've had 2 meetings over the last month. There was an executive meeting held on March 4th to discuss a proposal received to help with funding support for the Pemberton Area Airport. And then on March the 11th, we had a special meeting of the commission and was voted we had a vote on as to whether we should provide direction to staff to pursue this initiative. The commission was in agreement, so we are going to go ahead, but we're going to tread lightly on this. There's a company that has, over the last number of years, we've had a couple of companies come in and consultants to try to help us to get funding for the airport and or in the form of grants and things like that. And we've had very little success in doing that. This company's, the good thing about this particular company is they're very much, very close to both the provincial and the federal government. These folks have worked with them on a regular basis. So what we plan on doing is to have them, we're going to try them out. It's over a 9-month period. We're giving them 3 months, and we're going to look for some, see if we can get some results out of that. If we feel that that's not going anywhere, we can cut the contract with 30 days notice. So that was, it seemed like a very positive thing compared to any of the other folks that we've dealt with before. Get a bit of an update on the marketing update for community outreach. Some of the folks participated in a Garrison Petawawa virtual lunch. Some of the commission members were asked to speak at a Zoom meeting for the Deep River Seniors Friendship Club, and that's being scheduled this month. As far as fundraising goes, there's been so far $228,120 funds raised for the project runway. So things are still moving forward on that. So there's going to be some events planned for 2021 on February, or sorry, in the spring of this year. We're going to do another walk the runway. It worked out very, very well last year. And so the social distancing factor of it is very simple. It's very easy. You got a mile of runway. It's quite easy to do your social distancing and whatnot. So they're going to do that again. And then this summer, we're hoping to do the runway gala. It's going to be different than it was previous years, but it was a good fundraiser. And in the fall, they'll probably do another walk the runway. So trying to keep things moving there, and hopefully things will start working out a little better. That's all I have.
Okay.
Any questions?
No. Thank you, Mayor. That's it. There's no other business. I have nothing for a closed session. I will adjourn at 10:20. And that's it for our committee meetings.
Are we ready? So I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of council this Wednesday, 17th of March at 11, not quite 11 a.m., but 10:22 a.m. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Being none, delegations and presentations. So today we have Ryan McGauley who provide us with the auditor's 2020 financial statements. Brian is with the he's a CA of Scott Rosenblack and Lockheed, and going to tell us a lot of good news today, I'm sure. So over to you, Ryan.
Thank you. Before I get started, I have some letters that need to be discussed with council. They're the same letters we talk about every year. First one is called an audit findings letter. It is written from our firm to council, and it's the bookend to a letter that was sent at the beginning of the audit. And in that first letter, we laid out our audit plan, the timing, the staffing, any issues we expected, there were none. And so this is the bookend to that letter, and it basically touches on all the points in that first letter, and everything went according to plan, no issues. And this letter just confirms that. The second letter, one we write every year, it's called the Independence Letter, and this letter just confirms that our firm has no independence issues with the town of Laurentian Hills. So as auditors, we need to confirm our independence because we cannot do our job if we are not independent. If we have any financial or economic dependence issues or personal relationships with the town, we have to disclose those. But again, just a standard letter, and we can confirm that we are again independent of the town. And then the third letter is called a representation letter. And this letter is written from the town to our firm. It's signed by Sherry, Tammy, and the mayor. And basically they confirm that they have told us everything that we asked for, haven't held anything back, and have been truthful. So it gives us even more confidence in the work we have done here. So thank you for signing that. I'll leave the other two letters with Tammy. Okay, so everybody has a copy of the financial statements in front of them. Before I get going, I'd just like to thank the staff here at the town of Laurentian Hills. They are very helpful, always pleasant, and it makes the audit go so much smoother, and it's always a pleasure to come up here and work. So thank you very much. So if we can start on page 2 of the financial statements. This is called the Independent Auditor's Report, and this is what we refer to as an unqualified opinion, which means that we couldn't find any reason to, we couldn't find anything in these financial statements that we had a problem with. We couldn't qualify it in any way, so it's unqualified. The second paragraph is what you're looking for. In our opinion, The accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the town of Laurentian Hills at December 31st, 2020, and the results of its operations. That is the opinion that you're looking for. And I did mention that these are the consolidated financial statements, as they are every year. And just to remind everybody, consolidated means it's 100% of the town's operations. It includes 100% of the Public Library Board. It's 48% of the North Grenfrew Landfill Operations Board. And it's approximately 7% of the Pemberton Area Airport Commission, 7.066% this year. So although the town is by far the largest component of these financial statements, it's not the only one. So just bear in mind that these figures do include other organizations that you're not used to seeing on a regular basis. Okay, we'll turn to page 4, please. So page 4 is the consolidated statement of financial position, or the balance sheet, as a lot of people know it. And it is a snapshot of the financial position of the town on December 31st, 2020. The bottom line is what everyone's going to look for, the accumulated surplus, $14,724,000. It's a big number, and we'll explore that a little bit later. Some notable components that make up that accumulated surplus. Cash, almost $7.2 million in cash. 2.3 of that was in your operating account, and 4.5 is in your reserve funds. So the town does have some significant savings. I always know that municipalities have very expensive projects always coming up, so that's a good thing that you have some savings. Taxes and interest receivable, $613,000. It's consistent with the prior year. And considering the year we've had because of COVID, a lot of people in financial hardship, I'm surprised, I'm impressed that that number is as low as it is. So that's encouraging. Other accounts receivable, was $257,000 of HST rebate that was receivable at the end of the year. And I would expect that would be in shortly. That'll be in your bank account soon. As far as financial liabilities go, they're fairly consistent with prior year. The nice thing of a municipality is that I think they're very consistent, and that's what we'd like to see. Trades payable includes 2 months of OPP billings, as it does every year, and 2 months of water and sewer operations from Veolia, and that's typical. They're usually a little slow in billing. Emergency Preparedness Committee payable, those are funds that you hold on behalf of that committee. Then deferred revenue is a pretty big number, 621,000. That represents grant monies that you have received but have not yet spent. Included in there is $546,000 of federal gas tax. And new this year, there's $74,000 left over from the Safe Restart Agreement, which is COVID funded. I think you spent 16 of the 90 that you received, and I believe there's a good chunk of that will be spent in 2020. New this year on the liabilities, there's a long-term liability, $20,668, and that comes from the airport. We got a loan to build a hangar, and because town is a 7% owner of the airport, we get to report 7% of the liability. So that's what that's about. Everything else is fairly consistent. Near the bottom in the non-financial assets, the largest component by far, $7.9 million, is your tangible capital assets. And in a municipality, most of that is roads, fire vehicles, road vehicles, and buildings. So I'll just give a quick rundown of the notable additions this year. The second fire rescue truck was delivered, 130,000. There was some roads equipment, a steamer and a roller for the grader, $18,000 and $35,000 respectively. And then paving done this year, Elizabeth Street was paved, Fields Road and Forestry Road. So in total, you spent approximately $560,000 improving your infrastructure. And the accounting estimate of the depreciation of that infrastructure was 640. So you're adding to you're improving your infrastructure at approximately the same rate as your infrastructure is deteriorating, which is what we want to see. Any questions? Okay. We'll turn the page to page 5. I know this is what everybody's always looking to see. This is where we see your annual surplus. Everybody's already gone to the third line from the bottom, $681,000. And that sounds like a lot, but a town has, like I said before, very big expenses, and we'll see where that surplus ends up shortly. Your taxation revenue, very consistent year to year, as we would expect it to be. It rises a little bit each year as the property values increase. Government grants. This section is the section that tends to fluctuate year to year. It can be difficult to budget for because we have no idea what's going to happen. For example, in 2020, COVID happened, and you can see that. And so this year, the $25,000 of Government of Canada grants, that's the amount of the federal gas tax that was used, that we get to recognize as revenue this year, used to do some road improvements. The 334 from the province of Ontario. 243 is the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. Used to be known as the policing grant. And then the remaining remaining funds in there are the $90,000 from the province for the Safe Restart Fund. You'll notice that last year's numbers are significantly bigger. If you remember, last year you received a $400,000 modernization grant, and that was a one-time grant. That's why this section tends to change from year to year. Other income, nothing terribly exciting in here. You will notice that your investment income is down significantly, 105 last year, down to 60 this year. That number represents almost entirely the interest on your operating account and the interest on your treasury account. And we all know that shortly after the pandemic hit, the interest rates dropped, and accordingly, your interest income has dropped. As far as expenditures go, bear in mind these numbers here are very high level. There's a lot of individual accounts that get aggregated into these numbers. And as you can see, the numbers are very consistent year to year, which is what we like to see, and it's what you budgeted for. Of note, the social and family services expenditures, you'll note, are way down. Last year, you did a number of renovations on the Chalk River Nursery School. That's why last year's number is higher. Of course, nursery was closed most of this year. Renovations are already done, so not much spent there. Recreation and cultural services, you'll notice, is down a fair bit too. Less money was spent on the parks this summer and at the library as well. Also, both things due to COVID. So that brings us to the bottom line, the annual surplus, $681,000 compared to last year of 1.2 million. It is much lower, but also last year you had some unexpected one-time grants, the modernization grant and budget, the school grants, etc. So that number does make sense. So at the end of the day, the accumulated surplus of the town is $14.7 million. Does anybody have any questions on this page? Yes?
Just a quick one, Ryan. What is under other, what are insurance proceeds?
Oh, yes. That's a little bit of leftover from the North Renfrew Landfill Operations Board when they had that snow collapse last year. The rebuilding of that building wasn't quite complete at the end of 2019. Some of it bled over into 2020, and that's the last little bit of insurance proceeds that came in. So, most of it was recognized in the prior year. Okay, let's turn to page 18 quickly, please. We'll just do a quick little recap. So on page 18, note 11 is the accumulated surplus note, and this is what details what makes up that 14.7 million of accumulated surplus. First number, 2.3 million of reserves. That is funds that are in your operating bank account that council has earmarked for certain purposes. The largest component of that is a contingency reserve. It's up a little bit from last year, but it tends to climb each year. The second line, $4.3 million in the reserve funds. Those are funds that council has set aside in a separate bank account that earns interest. And those funds have been set aside for very specific purposes. For example, replacing fire equipment or roads equipment. There's a number of different reserve funds in there. So those first two are basically savings for a rainy day. Invested in tangible capital assets, that represents the estimated value of your infrastructure. So roads, buildings, vehicles, etc. It's down very slightly from last year. And the general revenue fund, $374,000. This represents the part of your surplus that you have not allocated to a specific purpose. And finally, the last line is unfunded landfill post-closure care, which is a mouthful. And this represents the estimated future liability that the town has to, after all the landfills close, you need to monitor. And I believe that typically goes on for a 25-year period. And because we're using the landfills now, we need to recognize the cost of it now, even though we're not going to spend the money for many, many years. And this is an estimate of today's cost of what the liability may be in the future. So it's an estimate of an estimate. Any questions? Okay, we're going to take a quick step back one page to page 17. Note 10 is where we detail what makes up the reserves and the reserve funds that I just referred to. The top section is reserves. The bulk of that is your contingency reserve money you earmarked for those purposes. And the bottom is the reserve funds. The bottom section is the money that is set aside in a separate bank account, earning interest. And you'll notice that you have increased the reserve funds by 495,000 this year, and you've only used 163. So on the whole, you're saving more than you're spending, which is always a good idea. And just to note that these reserve funds are all the towns. There's no part of these belong to the airport or landfill or the library. These are purely the town's contribution. And then one more page to look at quickly. Go to page 23.
Ryan?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Before you move on, there's one item in there called legacy. What's that? on the reserve fund?
That is a reserve fund that was set up to save money for the retirement gratuity. So when longtime staff retire, there was a retirement gratuity, a retirement payment to recognize their long service. And that reserve fund is there was set up to help fund that. Okay, page 23. I just want to draw your attention to the very last note, note 16. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, all audited financial statements are requiring notes. The note that we've placed here basically describes when the pandemic started. And it says that the overall effect of the pandemic on the town and its operations are too uncertain to be estimated at this time. So basically we're saying we've never lived through a pandemic before. We don't know what the end result is going to be on the town. Yeah. We're just noting that here. Now, overall, it seems as the town has fared fairly well, but we are still in the middle of a pandemic and we can't say for sure. So we have this note. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Any further questions?
Thank you very much.
You've done good, Ryan. Thank you so much for taking us through there step by step. It's I find when we first get into it, it's get a little bit on the confusing side, but as you work your way through it, things certainly get clear. So thank you so much for taking the time to come up here today and go through this. So I guess I have a resolution here. So we have a move by Ann Giardini, seconded by John Hoyle. Be it hereby resolved that this council of the town of Laurentian Hills does confirm and accept the presentation of the financial statements for the year 2020 by Mr. Ryan McCauley, CPA, CA of Scott, Rosenblatt and Locke, Chartered Accountants as presented. Any discussions on that? All in favor? And carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll let you go now. See you next year. Okay. Next item, adoption of minutes. The regular council meeting of 17th of February. So moved by Ed Giardini, seconded by John Hoyle. Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council of 17th of February be adopted as circulated. Any discussions on that? All in favor? And carried. Next is the standing committee reports. Moved by John Hoyle, seconded by Ann Giardini. Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the meeting in the committee of the whole for protection to persons and property of 17th of February 2021 be adopted as circulated. Any discussions on that? All in favor? And carried. Next item, a move by John Hoyle, seconded by Ann Giardini. Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the meeting of the committee of the whole for planning of 17th of February 2021 be adopted as circulated. Discussion. None. All in favor? And carried. Next item, moved by Ann Giardini, seconded by Brenda Blimke. Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the meeting of the committee of the whole for public works of 17th of February 2021 be adopted as circulated. Discussions? All in favor? And carried. Moved by Brenda Blimke, seconded by Ann Giardini. Be it hereby resolved the minutes of the meeting of the committee of the whole for community and social services of 17th of February 2021 be adopted as circulated. Discussions? All in favor? And carried. Next item, moved by Ann Giardini, seconded by John Hoyle. Be it hereby resolved the minutes of the meeting of the committee of the whole for finance and personnel of 17th of February 2021 be adopted as circulated. discussions? All in favor? And carried. Okay, next item, business arising out of previous minutes, being none. Other reports is resolution to acknowledge receipt of the Chalk River drinking water system. So it was moved by Ann Giardini, seconded by Brendan Blipke. Be it hereby resolved that this council does acknowledge receipt of the Chalk River drinking water system annual operations report for 2020 from Viola Water Canada Inc., dated February 18th, 2021. Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor? And it's carried. Okay. Next item is the mayor's update. So over the course of month of March to date, I've attended about 8 meetings or events. On March 3rd, I attended an ad hoc County Road 51 committee meeting with the development property. So we were looking at the County Road 51, which is basically Petawawa Boulevard and so on, and what we were going to be doing there. So we had a discussion on it at that ad hoc meeting and forwarded it on to development property but then that will be taken to county council. The county council will determine whether and how we're going to fund that. So on March 4th, I attended an executive meeting at the airport. I've spoke about that earlier in the committee meeting. So and it was about a recent proposal from a company. On March 10th, there was a COVID-19 meeting with respect to the Deep River Hospital, and I believe our CAO attended that one, Sherry. And on the 10th of March, there was a county council special meeting on the service delivery initiatives, within the county. On March the 11th, the Renfrew County District Health Unit Mayor's meeting. Deputy Mayor Giardini attended on my behalf, and I'll ask her to speak about it when I finish up here. And on March 16th, I was at the County Development Property meeting, and part of that discussion was again with the County Road 51 development. On March 17th, which is today, there's a community services committee meeting, which I will not be attending as I'm here today. And that concludes my report. So Ann, did you want to speak at all about the?
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so March 11th, there was a Zoom meeting with all the mayors in Renfrew County and the Renfrew County District Health Unit. Dr. Robert Cushman spoke mostly about how things are in Renfrew County. We are at that point scratching orange. As they say, we're in yellow, but scratching orange. There may be a third wave. They impressed how important it is for people to stick to social gatherings. Currently are still being too big. Travel is a problem. Where people do go to work, they're very good during their work hours, but social time, their downtime, they're seeing cases come from that. And they want people to really use the link on the Renfrew County District Health Unit website to get their information. And there is a link on our website to get there for all your COVID-19. And they stress upon people getting the vaccines to make sure that you are eligible to get your vaccines when you do sign up for them. And they were concerned about how to reach the 80+ group, because many of the 80+ group do not have, are not on the social websites and all that. So there was talk about putting together a postcard that would be sent out to all the residents in Renfrew County, and that would have information on it with phone numbers, websites if you're able to, but also a phone number to call if you need help or more information. And they've decided that this meeting would happen every 2 weeks at the same time with the mayors. And they are also going to be inviting the CAOs because they obviously need to be on board and aware of all that's going on. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Bylaw number 0621, proposed by John Hoyle, seconded by Andrew Dini. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw number 0621 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan control agreement, Marion Lecky, do now be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Any discussions on that? All in favor? And carried. Next item, 0720. Oh, sorry, this one's 0721. The last one was 06. Moved by John Hoyle, seconded by Andrew Dini. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw number 0721 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan control agreement, Shen and Nana Brecken, do now be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Discussions? All in favor? Carried. Next item, approval of accounts, nothing there. Petitions being none. And correspondence, action items. First item, moved by Brenda Blemke, seconded by Andrew Dini. Be it hereby resolved that the resolution from North Algoma, Wilberforce Township regarding Ontario Northland Transportation Services be filed or endorsed.
I agree.
I think we should endorse this.
Okay. And do you have any comments?
No, it's just 2 days a week. They want to alternate for weeks.
Yeah. And this actually came from the request came from the county that all municipalities review this, and there is no impact on the town of Laurentian Hills, but it's a good thing overall. But you know, it may come this way too. John.
I'll be honest, I never realized how busy it was in the Douglas area until we got the camp down there. And the highways are busy with the buggies and the horses and stuff. So I think this is needed in our community.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, so all in favor of endorsing? Carried. Okay, next item is moved by John Hoyle, seconded by Andrew Dini. Be it hereby resolved that the resolution from the Lake of Bays regarding capacity limits for restaurants in stage 2 under the reopening Ontario Act 2020 be filed or endorsed. Discussions.
I would endorse this because I think they have to look at the square footage of areas because not every restaurant is the same. Not every eating establishment is the same.
Yeah.
So I would endorse this.
Any
I'll
comments?
endorse this as well.
Okay, all in favor of endorsing? Carried. Okay, moved by John Hoyle, seconded by Andrew Dini. Be it hereby resolved the resolution from the Corporation of the Township of Bonnechere Valley requesting that the province of Ontario amend the regulation to permit tracked off-road vehicles in similar manner to snowmobiles be filed or endorsed. Discussions around that. Don?
I think we should endorse this as well, as long as this, it looks like they're gonna be the same thing as the snowmobiles. So as long as they're tracked, which means they're plated and insured. So I'm in favor as long for that reason. I'll support this.
Brenda, any comment?
So it'll be basically the same type of idea as with skidoos or snowmobiles rather. Yeah, it's my understanding too. So it wouldn't be anything different or anything from that. So based on that, I would endorse it as well.
Okay. There's one portion here that I have a little bit of concern with. I have no issues with them crossing. I have none
Mhm.
whatsoever. But in the statement it says, whereas other tracked vehicles such as snowmobiles are permitted when directly crossing or in specific circumstances on the non-service portion of some highways. That part of it I have some concerns with, about being on the non-service portion of some highways. Like, is that 100 feet? Is that 100 kilometers? That's the only concern I have on it. But as far as the crossing portion of it, I have no issues whatsoever with it, especially like, we are a rural community, and I hope that this won't get it taken out of proportion. That's my big concern. Brenda.
Can we get clarification on that at all, or before we vote on it, bring it back? What you were just talking about, Jed?
The only thing I would, like, from my perspective, I would certainly endorse the crossing. I find the other portion of it is a little bit loose, but that's my only.
So again, can we get more information on that and more clarification?
But again, you're not gonna get anything different than what the snowmobiles are doing. They're doing that same portion that they're talking about here. So that's why everything's the same as whether it's a snowmobile or a recreation vehicle. It's gonna be the same portions, so I have no issues with it.
Yeah.
There's no issues with the snowmobiles, no? So there's no issue with endorsing this?
That is what they're saying, is that some of those will be included from the non-service portion.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, let's vote on it. Endorse or file?
Endorse.
3 endorse, 1 file. Carried. Right. And next item. Next item moved by Ann Giardini, seconded by Brenda Blipke. Whereas the residents and businesses across our municipality need access to modern and adequate access to high-speed broadband services. And whereas the demand for high-speed broadband services will continue to grow year after year. And whereas our residents and businesses should not continue to be disadvantaged by the lack of access to high-speed services. And whereas the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, or EORN, has submitted a comprehensive regional project to deliver gig up to 1,000 megapixels, is that what it is? Megabytes of speed that will serve our residents and businesses long into the future. And whereas EORN's approach has proven itself very successful and represents an efficient and effective way to solve our broadband needs. Now, therefore, the Council of the Town of Laurentian Hills requests the federal and provincial governments to immediately fund the EORN gig project. And further, that a letter of support with a copy of this resolution be sent to Minister Monsef and Minister Scott with copies of our Member of Parliament and Member of Provincial Parliament. Any discussions around that? Brenda?
I'm in favor of this all the way. I mean, anything that the county is doing to push this project forward, I'm definitely behind it.
Okay, anyone else? Comments? Okay, all in favor then? Carried. I think it's a no-brainer. Especially living up in this neck of the woods. And it's not just here, there's down in the Madawaska Valley area, any of the remote areas, we're having a real challenge in trying to stay online. I've had a couple of meetings, Zoom meetings, where I've been kicked off because of just not having the conductivity. So it's not fun. Okay, next item, information items, moved by Ann Giardini, seconded by Brenda Blipke. Be hereby resolved that all items of correspondence be filed. Any discussions before we decide what to do there? Everybody okay with that? All in favor of filing correspondence? Okay, thank you. Carried. Next item, unfinished business, being none. New business, none. Closed session, yes, we'll be moving into closed session. So moved by Andrew Dini, seconded by Brenda Blipke. Be it hereby resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 239B and F of the Municipal Act, C25 SO 2001, as amended, as the subject matter considered is personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Can I get a, all in favor of moving into closed and carried?